All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Real Talk with Ryan. Very excited to be with you today. I'm joined by my guest, Ben Lederman. Ben, thank you so much for being with us today. Would you take a minute just to expand a little bit more and introduce yourself to whoever's watching?
Yeah, thank you for having me. So my name is Ben. I'm a junior College of Arts and Sciences majoring in psychology, and I also have minors in theater and European studies. On campus, in addition to EARS, I'm also a supervisor for intramural sports. I'm also involved in PCAT and a research assistant for David Smith's lab. So you'll find me all over campus. Love to be involved.
So Ben, junior year, and how, you've been living with COVID pretty much since you got here then, right? Like I always talk to folks about the seniors. This year's seniors are the only ones that have had a full academic year at Cornell, not interrupted. So you've certainly experienced that a little bit in all three of the years, correct?
Yeah, it's interesting. On one end, you hear from people saying our year might have been the best time because we might have a senior year that's a little bit more full, and we got a little bit of freshman year to get to know people. But it's always hard, as you're saying. We never had a full academic year in person without any restrictions. But
I like the way that folks are framing it for the class of 23, that it might be the best because next year we'll have the full year. So is there one thing that you're really hoping for this year?
I'm really open to a variety of events. This year, I'm Jewish, so I just had Yom Kippur recently. So one of my philosophies going into the new Jewish year was really to be as open as possible. So,
Gotcha.
whatever in-person events we can have, those are great. I just went to Apple Fest this weekend.
Oh,
okay. That was a lot of fun. So,
Ben, I want to talk a little bit about EARS. Maybe we can jump into this a little bit, and then we'll see where the conversation takes us. I first do note that we're currently in Mental Health Awareness Week, so I think this is a really salient conversation for us to be having. But tell me a little bit, well, why don't you tell our audience first exactly what EARS is, and then I want to ask you how you got involved.
Yeah, so EARS stands for Empathy Assistance and Referral Service. We've been here for decades on campus. And what we do is we're a premier mental health organization that's focused on providing peer support, peer mentorship. In addition to trainings, you'll see we have our diverse training program where people will work their way up into joining what we call our staff to provide peer mentorship to other students. And that's really for mental health support one-on-one. And we also host workshops with other organizations on campus because really what we're going for is so everyone has this base knowledge. So when mental health conversations come up, it's not something of feeling fearful or not prepared. Everyone has that base knowledge. So you can just be empathetic listeners in that time.
I appreciate what you just said because I've thought for a long time that one of the things we need most, not just on campus, but in society, are just people to lean on and people who are good, empathetic listeners, like you said, who when, and we're all going to face challenges in our life. We all do face challenges in our life, that we've got people that we can lean on and people that will help just be a support to us, and not necessarily in the clinical sense, but just in terms of their ability to really be present with us and help us through that.
I think really with the model change, what we were trying to embrace is we've never been that clinical service. We were never trying to replace professional clinical therapy or the psychiatry element of it. What we're really here for, it's not even really that it's an upstream service. I don't even like that term because it's really an alternative service. Because if you think about it, with the way I think of therapy is you're talking with someone because you might not feel comfortable sharing those types of details with the other people in your lives. So in some senses, we're closer on a peer-to-peer level. So you have this way, if you just want to rant about something to someone and you don't feel like you want to go to a professional clinical service, we're there for that. We're there if you want to talk about topics where you feel like an adult might not necessarily connect as well as one of your peers. And we're just here to talk about general elements. And sometimes having the more loose environment, a little bit more open, more conversational, where it doesn't have to have that clinical sense, where you need to have the therapist-client relationship, that can be really beneficial for people.
How did you yourself get involved in EARS? Now, you introduced yourself. You said you're studying psychology, so I don't know if that was part of what drew you to it, or tell us your story a little bit.
Yeah, so I came into Cornell initially. I came in as a chem major and I was expecting maybe to go to veterinary school, but I was deciding between veterinary school or medical school. And after a while, I realized that I really wanted to be involved in the mental health sphere. So I joined EARS my spring semester of my freshman year. And that was interesting in itself because that was sort of
that was the semester we had to shut down, right?
That was the semester we had to shut down. So it was interesting as EARS going through the training process of going from in-person to virtual and really living through the transition that EARS has been going through. And I think that's really benefited me as a co-president, knowing sort of a full spectrum of where EARS has been at. But yeah, personally, I've wanted to become a psychiatrist really. I've been in my community, like on a more serious note, there's a family history for me of people who have completed suicide. So with that family history, I'm definitely more attuned to the different mental health struggles that people can go through, and being able to be there for my friends when they needed it, and being that mental health person, it came naturally to me. So I knew that this was a place where I could really make a difference.
Thanks for, first of all, for sharing a little bit about the personal impact and the personal journey that's led you down this path. I appreciate you opening up and sharing that with me, and certainly with our audience listening today. And thanks also for your commitment to the field, the profession. So obviously what you're doing on campus, but that this is going to be a future career path for you as well. Your commitment already to this community has surely meant a lot to us, and appreciate that very much. Talked a lot about mental health, and we'll get back to EARS here in a minute, but I'm going to speak about mental health broadly. So this is an active topic of conversation on this campus. It's really not a day goes by where I'm not talking to some student or a colleague or something, and we're thinking about mental health and promoting a positive culture around mental health, yet we continually feel challenged to do so. So are there any things that you would point to for students that may not be aware of some of the resources we have, or advice or tips around navigating Cornell's mental health support and infrastructure, and what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think a lot of times when you hear mental health on campus, the first instinct is for CAPS, which is a great resource if you want that professional, clinical, one-on-one counseling. But there's definitely lots of other opportunities on campus. CAPS does host their Let's Talk, which can be a great way if you want more of an open environment to talk with professional staff. But there's also lots of organizations that are focused on mental health and well-being. So you can find it with recreational services. I'll plug and say, intramural sports.
Intramurals.
Yeah, if you just want to, have some exercise, that can be a great way. And I really find that mental health is really individualized. So it's really finding the different ways where you can relax and have fun a little bit. And I think that's really important, because Cornell students, just as a general statement, I find a lot of our stress comes from trying to overachieve. And it can come from a variety of different contexts, whatever you're trying to strive for. So it's really finding a way to break yourself from that environment. So when I get involved with intramurals, when I use that as an example, it seems kind of out there, not necessarily what I would be interested in, but it's just a way to take my mind off of everything else that's in the situation.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's really good advice. And it strikes me, so I haven't been at Cornell forever. I mentioned this is my 7th academic year here, and I've worked at a number of other institutions too. I always try to focus too, and I want to know if you agree with this, and if not, certainly feel free to disagree as well. Really trying to empower students to recognize how much agency they have in shaping that culture too, with their peers, with each other. And I sense this is a bit about what EARS philosophy is, but students really do have a lot of power to shape that culture around that sense of competition and the way they think about that. I realize it's incredibly challenging to get into Cornell, and that, kind of builds on itself, and people feel like they have to continue that. But your advice around being able to decompress and relax and have fun and laugh with friends and peers, I just think is so important.
No, I definitely agree with you on that front. And I think a lot of times the pressure that students are feeling may not necessarily be student to student. It really is a competition with yourself.
I see.
If you're just talking about mental health on campus, a lot of times people don't know where to start to make that type of change, because there's been various movements on campus saying they could be directed at CAPS, it could be directed at mental health in general. And a lot of times people don't necessarily know how to necessarily connect with the administration that's making the decisions. It might be even a question for you of necessarily how would you want to work with students? Because sometimes it can feel like we're doing a lot of different efforts on campus, but they don't necessarily coincide with real action that students can see and be proud of.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I appreciate you asking it, because everything that me and my colleagues do in student and campus life, and that our division really tries to focus on supporting students outside of the classroom, so all kind of the non-academic things. We all have a deep interest in student success and in doing and making decisions that are ultimately going to make this environment, this campus environment, the most positive as possible for students to be successful. So we welcome that feedback and input and partnership. We actually have, I think most students, if we spent the time together, would realize we have the same goals and the same desired outcomes. we may not always agree 100% on how to get there or what the right tactics are to get there, but we very much want to see the same thing. And I think I certainly speak for myself, but most of my colleagues in the division, we welcome conversations and discussions and also hard work about how to make change. If there's certain things we want to see done differently, I invite students to reach out to me, to write to my colleagues, if it's focused on a particular office, CAPS or this, whatever, to reach out to the director or the staff in that office, have the conversation. But I will say I welcome it. I think sometimes there's a narrative of this tension, and a healthy tension is okay with administration versus students, whatever. There's no versus when it comes to our work in student and campus life. We're really here to support that, and so how we can collaborate and connect and move forward together is what we really want.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that because, as EARS, we've gone through the full model change, and a lot of people don't see the behind the scenes work that myself, as well as the entire board of EARS, has gone through this summer. And a lot of it was working with Cornell administration. And people might find it surprising, but we had a great relationship working with them in order to form this model. Because what we were really striving for is to continue our one-on-one service, because we knew that was the best way that we could connect with people. And the fact that we were able to maintain that element of our service while still changing it so we could really focus on the peer-to-peer element. It wasn't really that we felt it was a forced change on us. It was, we need to relook at our model and see how can we make a greater impact.
Well, and the way that you've set up the org in partnership with some of my colleagues, is immensely helpful for our campus. And I think will have a tremendous impact. You said you prefer this alternative model language, and so I'll use that as an alternative resource, an alternative option for students to really get support and feel supported as they navigate Cornell. But it's work that we have to keep doing. 25% of the undergraduate class turns over every year. And so people need to understand as they come in that this partnership can exist and can work well together. And we'll do more for the campus. And there's sometimes an irony in this too, right? Because sometimes we do need or want to change and evolve something. And it may be something that's really treasured or it's meant a lot. And the change doesn't mean it has to be bad, right? It can mean, how do we really match something for today? It's 2021 at Cornell. What do we need today? Which may be different than what we needed yesterday or the day before, and making sure that we set that up best in partnership with our students. So anything else you'd want to speak about in relation to EARS and the model and what you all are really have your objectives set up for this coming year that we're in?
Yeah, I'd just say, well, first off, we're filming this on Tuesday the 5th. It is our first day of peer mentoring being open on campus starting with our 2 locations on North Campus and on Central Campus. So I'm really excited to have.
It's a big day.
It's a really big day for us.
That's awesome.
So excited with Mental Health Week. So yep. It really makes sense. We're very excited to be back doing that one-on-one service. We have our liaisons who have been working with other student organizations on campus. They've already been doing great work there. So very excited about that. I guess one other element that I'll speak to is just our training program. We've had our trainees going through it thus far. One of the things I'm really excited about that we've really made a focus this semester is looking at mental health and different diversity initiatives that we've done.
I commend you on taking that approach. Let me ask a question about the training model too. So as you begin this, if I'm just any student on this campus, I can participate in this. Are you also, is there an effort or intentionality around training leaders of different organizations or groups on campus in this train the trainer model?
Yeah, absolutely. So as part of our model, our peer mentors and our liaisons have to be Cornell students, and that can be undergraduate or graduate students. But in our training program, we have lots of staff members as well. And with our model, we have a new role, which we're calling the empathy chair. So they're not necessarily part of our EARS staff, but you go through a training and you have this separate orientation session to where we find what's best is sometimes going to an outside org, coming to us as EARS can be intimidating for students. But if you're already part of your own student organization, or if you're a staff member and you already want to work with your department who might know you better, you can become this empathy chair after a semester of training. And then you have these empathy skills to where you can bring it to your workplace or your club organization. And you already have those personal connections, so you can establish your own form of mental health support.
Outstanding. So much about what you're sharing and the transformation you've undertaken, I know has required an enormous amount of work by you and your colleagues. And so again, I just commend you on all the efforts, and it sounds like this will just continue to be, I should say, a really fantastic resource for Cornellians across the board. So thank you for that. I know that fall break is coming up. We joked about that a little bit before. Monday, Tuesday, we have and obviously with the weekend, we have a long weekend. So that's really nice. I know I'm looking forward to it. I hope you're looking forward to it. Ben, any advice you'd give to students as they approach fall break to rejuvenate and get ready for the second half of the semester?
I'd say with fall break, the best thing that you can do is take a step back and really allow yourself the time to do the activities that you love. All those sort of like separate goals of, oh, I'd really love to do that type of moments. I'd say this is the time to do it. You don't need to feel the pressure of getting ahead. If that's something that you find will help you in a better state of mind later on, it's individual. So go ahead and do that. But what I find personally helps for me is really being around people. Maybe it's just the area that I love, but I love interacting with people, whether it's my roommates, my friends, anywhere around. I find that connection really helps.
Well, we're just about anything else that you want to talk about or throw on the table before we sign off here for this episode?
Well, it is an EARS tradition. Anyone who's been part of our training program knows that anytime we're ending sort of one of our training sessions, a meeting, even if it's just EARS staff, we have our checkout question. So I threw it out there. For this session, maybe we have our checkout question be, what is a life philosophy or a quote that you try to live by?
A life philosophy or a quote. So when you do a checkout question, I mean, explain this a little bit more, and I'll come back to that. I'm not just trying to stall and buy time here, but so this is just a way that you wrap up your trainings or your meetings, or what?
Yeah, so really with our training programs, we can be talking about very intense mental health topics. And when we have these mental health conversations, it can be really helpful for students or anyone in our training program to just decompress afterwards. So we really like having those questions so trainees can feel more connected to the trainers, to everyone in their community. And then also just to be able to have that mental health space of going, yes, we've discussed some heavy topics. I'm ready to move on. We have very silly ones. We've asked about Chicago or New York pizza.
New York, no question.
I have family in Chicago. I will support.
Oh, okay. Well, back to your question, I guess, this comes to mind. It was actually something a colleague when I was in graduate school shared with me, but he said that he tries to enter every relationship, every dynamic, every conversation, both intending and presuming goodwill. And I think that for me is just a really good way to stay grounded and focused and keep my priorities in place. My job here and my role and why I get up every day to do what I do is because I care about college students. I care about providing and helping to support a great experience while you're here. And nothing else really matters beyond that. And I'm going to just keep working at that and hope that every person I interact with, that we can intend and presume goodwill together.
My life philosophy is actually fairly similar, living with good intentions. Because
no
matter where you go into life, there could be mistakes, and there are going to be mistakes that are going to happen along the way. And that good intention element, at least for yourself that you came into this. Maybe it didn't come out with your expectations, but it is there along the way.
Thank you for spending time with us today. Thank you for all you're doing to co-lead EARS and with all of your colleagues who couldn't be with us today, but I know are working very hard alongside you. Thank you for the excellent support of the Cornell community and all that you do. And Ben, I hope you have a really restful fall break and get a chance to get outside, maybe ref some soccer or do something fun like that. And
yeah, thank you. And I hope you take some time for yourself too. I know the staff life, as much as we can disconnect as students, it can be stressful. So hopefully you find a space for yourself.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in to Real Talk with Ryan. I hope this has been an enjoyable episode. I certainly have enjoyed getting to know Ben and all the great work that he's doing, and also just the good advice that he shared today with all of you, but also with me. Make sure to tune in next time, and we look forward to seeing you again. Take care. Bye, everyone.